here. You go for it.
Okay, guys, my name is Rick Jones. I'm here with Scott Hanna. We're with the Hayesville High School Aviation program, which is just kicking this thing off and getting it started. We've got a lot of interest from the kids so far. And the main reason we're doing this is to instill in these kids some opportunities for careers and to see what will spark their interest in the world that they're about to enter. We live in a very small rural community, and if the kids graduate high school here and they don't have any set plans or not exposed to any of these ideas and opportunities, I think they're going to be relegated to a pretty low-cap future in their careers. So what we've done here is we've got a simulator program started, and you can buy these simulators. This one we're using is called X-Plane, and you can put it on your home computer at home, and you can operate everything on the simulator with just a monitor from your computer and your keyboard. However, it's not very realistic. So what we were trying to do is make this as realistic as possible, so when they do get to the Cessna 172, their initial training airplane, things won't be as foreign to them and their learning curve will be greatly enhanced. So towards that end, we bought some of the peripherals that some companies offer out there. One is a control yoke, throttle quadrant, some actual instruments that you can mount in an instrument panel, and a switch panel, and rudder pedals. So a lot of people just take these things and clamp them to a desktop, which is okay and provides a little realism. And then they put a desk chair and sit in that, and you can act like you're flying an airplane. And that's not a bad simulation. It's really not bad. However, we thought we'd go one step further. I went on the internet, the World Wide Web, and found some people that had made some cardboard and plywood simulations of aircraft fuselages and attached these things to them and provided some more realism. So then I got the brilliant idea, well, if we can do that, why don't we just find an old wrecked 172 and cut it down, modify it, and put all these instruments and hardware in this actual airplane, as much of the actual airplane as we can have. So now our goal is, our stated goal is, and our idea is, that when a kid walks up to this simulator, he's going to have to step around a tire of a 172, step on the gear leg to get in the 172, open the door just like a 172 with the actual latches and clicks and everything, get in a 172 seat, adjust it just like in a 172, and have a visual out front that looks really, very much like the real world. So that's what we did. I contacted an aircraft salvage unit down in Atlanta and said, hey, I need an unairworthy, wrecked out 172 fuselage, just part of it. And he said, come on down, we got 2 or 3 and you can take your pick. And this is what we came up with. This is in a lot better shape than when we got it. If you'll pan to the right there, Scott, you'll see some of the stuff we cut off of it. But this is really all we need. The seats are going to sit right here. So I'm going to start at the very back here and go forward and tell you what the challenges we've had so far and how we address those challenges. The first thing that you're going to find when you find one of these wrecked 172s in the scrapyard is it's been sitting out for a long time, got a lot of rust, corrosion, dirt, rat's nest, just trash in it. It also will not have any landing wheels and axles on it. But if you can find one with the gear legs on it, that's a good start. So we did that, but we didn't have the tires, wheels, or axles, and those are very expensive parts even used. So I put an ad on a thing called Barnstormers and said, hey, we need some unairworthy axles, tubes, wheels, and tires for a 172. And a guy called me up and he said, I got just the thing you need. You pay the shipping and I'll get it to you. That's what we did. So we've got the axles, tires, wheels, and tubes, and I bolted it to the landing gear. Now, if you'll back out here a little bit, you're going to see that this presents a pretty wide footprint. So if you're trying to get this through a door, it's not going to fit through many doors. That's almost 8 feet wide, the wheelbase there. However, Cessna made this so you could take this landing gear off. And what it is, come right over here, Scott, to this side right here, and I'll show you. This is a flat gear that goes into a saddle, and it's got one bolt that holds that in. You drop that bolt out and that whole thing will come out. And that's how we're going to get it into the classroom that we're going to put this in at the high school. And we actually don't even have a door wide enough to do that, so we're going to take out a couple of windows and turn it sideways and put it in. Okay, now if you come up a little bit forward here, If you get an older model Cessna 172, 63 or older, it's going to have a great big handle in the floor for flaps. And the simulator doesn't use that, it uses a switch. The later model Cessnas uses a switch. So what we did was we took that handle out and just put a plate over this. Moving forward a little bit, the older model Cessnas had a trim wheel. And so we took that trim wheel out and we put the hardware from the computer right there with the trim wheel. And all of these little units that come with this X-Plane stuff and the SkyTech have a cable running to them and go to a USB port, go to USB hub, and go into the computer. So it operates just like the airplane. Okay, now we got to come to the instrument panel. I have actually cut out most of the instrument panel. You're going to find a lot of hacked up stuff in here, and we don't need this part of it. What we need is just a flat piece of material, and you can make this out of anything. You can make it out of wood if you want. We're making ours out of 16 gauge mild steel, and we're going to mount all of the instruments, the switch panel, the throttle quadrant, and the radios in this panel, and then just attach it to this frame right here.
Is that what is over here?
No, I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so that's the instrument panel. And there are some challenges to that, which I'll get to when we get over there to the instrument panel. Now we have rudder pedals that we need to address. The rudder pedals that come with this hardware, they're a little funky in that your feet sit flat on the floor, and they're not true Cessna style rudder pedals. And I'll show you how our plan to connect that to the real rudder pedals in just a minute. The other thing that's hard to find for these in the scrapyard are nice straight doors with latches and seats. So the guy had some seats down there out of a Cessna 210, but he would not donate those. He said those are very expensive. So he gave us those at cost for $300 a piece. And we also had to buy other hardware, another door that was straighter, some latches, mechanisms. So as this thing sits right here and will be tuned up, be just about $900 that we'll have in this unit right here. The other challenge you're going to have, if you see this plexiglass windscreen, on the corners here of every 172 in the junkyard, they're broken out right here, and that's because there's some real high dollar air vents that sit right here for the Cessna 172. And people that have 172s are looking for those that operate. And wholesale at the junkyard used, they run about $500 a piece. So we're not going to have those. So now we have a challenge as to what to do with those holes right there. And we haven't come up with a solution to that yet. The other thing you see is that windshield is very crazed and almost not transparent at all. We're hoping that will clean up with polishes and some real high numbered sanding discs. If it doesn't, we'll probably just have to take that out and go without a windscreen. We'd like to keep the windscreen in there for a little more realism, just so they'll be looking through a windscreen at the TV screens that will be mounted to the front here. And the other thing you see here that's not Cessna 172 is the front strut. You need some way to support this front strut. You can do it with wood, you can do it with a big saddle block, you can do it with whatever. We had some old metal around, so we just took a square plate, picked up 4 1/4-inch bolt holes, and welded some things on it to put this in a proper attitude. And as you can see, it's sitting a little bit nose high. That's because we got a wheel on here to wheel this around. As soon as we get it to its final resting place at the school, we'll take this wheel off. It'll sit on the floor on this plate. We'll drill 2 1/2-inch bolts in there and put red heads or something into the concrete to secure it. Okay, that takes care of the actual airframe. Now I'll show you the real challenge of the instrument panel. This hardware is made by SciTech. There are some other manufacturers out there, but they're the biggest ones in the business. Here's what SciTech offers for an instrument panel. And this works really good if you're just going to put a desk chair and attach it to some type of framework and set it in your living room. This did not work in the 172, so we're going to have to build a whole new instrument panel. But we're getting measurements from this as to where the little instruments go and the control yoke box and things like that. So we're not going to use that except for just measurements. So here I've drawn up a full-scale 172 panel. This is exactly what we have to work with. And the thing you have to start with is the control yoke, because you see this box that's behind this. In the SciTech thing, they just let that stick out in front of the instrument panel. Well, we don't want that because it's not a realistic thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to back mount this. So we start with the hole and locate the actual location left and right, up and down, where this control yoke comes through the panel. And then we start laying out the instruments. We did a standard 6-pack of artificial horizon, directional gyro, turn and bank, airspeed indicator, altimeter, and rate of climb. So that's the standard 6-pack of the performance instruments for the airplane. Then we have a couple of radios. We'll have an instrument switch box with the mags and master switch and all of the electronics, and a throttle quadrant, and one for the tachometer and engine instruments. So that's what goes in the actual instrument panel. So as soon as we get it laid out and all the clearances are good and we like it, I'll transfer that to what we're going to use for the actual instrument panel, which is a 16-gauge piece of mild steel. This stuff is pretty cheap if you go to the scrap bin, where most of the places that cut this have, and the guy just gave us this piece of scrap and he actually cut it to size for us. That's what we're going to make out of that. Okay, if you come around to the other side here, I'll show you what we're doing with the rudder pedals. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge. This is the actual rudder pedal set that Cytex makes. So you go left and right with the rudders, and it's even got braking action on it. Well, this is kind of funky. Here's the real Cessna 172 pedals. So we're going to clean these up, mount them in there. We're going to mount this on the front side of the firewall, and we're going to take control rods from these pedals and attach them to that. So when we push this, it'll actually be pushing that through and then when we do the brakes, push down on the brakes, that'll be pushing down on the brakes. So that's our plan for the rudder pedals. Probably never been done before, so it's going to take a little bit of engineering and trial and error, but we think we can get that to work. So at the end of this, what we're going to have is 3 large TV screens on the front of this. Put some walls around it, so there's once the student gets into the 172 simulator, it's going to look very much like a real 172, and it's going to be as much as a real world experience as he can get with the absence of motion. Now you can go online and buy what we're doing right here for $60,000 with all the instruments, pedals, and seats and everything in it. And we're going to have a little under $5,000 in this when it rolls into the school. The motion costs another $30,000. I've talked to people that have flown the 172 simulator with motion, and they say the motion is really not necessary as long as you have some big screens up front to represent the visual. Your visual sensory in the human being is very keen and very realistic, and you're not going to miss the motion is what this guy told me.
All right, so that looks like a great layout for what we're doing here, what we have planned. This is going to go into the Clay County school system for our high school STEAM and STEM program, and we're going to be taking more videos as we progress so that you can see the progression and wind up posting everything online on YouTube so that you have a great idea as to how to do it for yourself. Any last words?
Thanks for your time, and we'll see you when we get a little bit further down the line when it's all painted and pretty.
Very good.